KCAA coming to you all over Southern California. If you miss us on the radio, you can't get us live, or you're not in the signal area, you can catch us on your favorite podcast platform or go to streaming. We're on the Building Solid Foundations channel. That's a free app you can download on Roku, Amazon Fire, or on your Android. No, it's not on Apple yet, but it probably will be before the end of the year. But for now, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Android, go to the Building Solid Foundations channel. It's a free download with a lot of other great shows, many of which are right here on KCAA as well. Today, we're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about the way you think and the way you view the world and how you process information. My guest is John Block. He's a communication transformer who has presented on 500 plus stages. He has been hired to train public speaking at HBO, Google, and White Pages. As an event promoter and community leader, John has produced 42 festivals and conferences, created multiple six-figure businesses, and co-founded 2 tiny house communities. John is the founder of Masterful Communicator Academy and lead trainer for Next Level Speaker, the 3-day speakers summit consistently hailed by participants as life-changing. Welcome, John, to Building Solid Foundations.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be here.
And yeah, I've known John outside of here fairly recently, a friend of a friend type of thing, but we get along well. I appreciate what he does, and he seems like an all-around good guy, and I find what he does interesting. I was in the public speaking business myself, mostly before the downturn, before the market came back. I was doing a lot of speaking and talking and training, so I can relate to a lot of that. It's a different kind of a world. So, John, let's talk about, first of all, how you got into this. So before we get into the mindset stuff, let's talk about how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I have a big passion for communication. It stems from being a horrible communicator. As a kid, I was teased a lot for how I looked. So my mom's Chinese, my dad's white. So definitely awkward phase at 12. And the time I started crushing on girls is when I got teased by those girls and the popular kids. So I really shut down as a communicator. I was also a shy kid, in my head a lot. So I decided that I wanted to do a profession that had nothing to do with people. So I was going to be a writer. I love movies. I went to USC film school. Okay. And I found that if I was going to gain any traction in the industry, I had to talk to people. I couldn't just hide behind my laptop and hope my manager would handle all the business side. And I hit a lot of roadblocks in my communication with people where I was trying to force it. I had this hunger, this craving, and this ambition, yet it wasn't really curious. There was no curiosity about people and really how we can collaborate. So I really had to transform my own communication. And ultimately, when I took a seminar that was about communication, cracked me wide open. I said, that's what I want to do. It can make such a difference in my life. There is no higher calling than to unify people and transform their communication. I firmly believe that we're in massive communication breakdown now on the planet. You have people who won't talk to each other because of who they voted for or whether they got the vaccine or not. We have people ghosting each other and this attachment to being right, see it my way or else we're not going to have a relationship. Massive communication breakdown. So that's why I'm really committed to this.
And I remember when I was growing up, and you probably remember this too, they told us how in the future there'd be these computers and we'd have instant communication and we could talk through text and we could video each other, and all that seemed like sci-fi stuff at the time, and how that was going to mean that instant communication was possible and it was going to bring the world together and all of us were going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya because we'd have instant communication and understand each other. And in fact, all that technology happened and it made it worse. And sometimes you look at that and go, okay, well, that didn't work out like it was planned. And
yeah, I think there's a part of each of our personality that I heard Chris Rock share, that when you meet someone, you meet their representative. You don't really meet that person.
Right.
So people have that tendency as a protective measure to it. Certainly, trust can be built, over time. So then that tendency has been amplified with the internet, that sending the representative, and people will want to create a certain impression of their perfect life. Instagram is probably the clearest case of this. And none of that can lead to actual human connection. So people's ability to actually communicate, listen, really uplift each other has been diminished by a lot of this.
I find it to be a complete conundrum. On the one hand, what you're saying is exactly right. Everything is a sales pitch. Everything that goes on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and everything, it's a big sales pitch, and it's somewhat, I guess, innocuously disingenuous representation of who we are. But we always, first date, you want to show up the best. Job interview, show up at your best. You don't highlight your faults, right? And so we want to always look our best. And so we're putting stuff out there. We look good. We smell good. seem like we're smart, we got it all together, no matter what's going on inside. At the same time, social media has shown what's really inside of people when you look at mean and hurtful comments and nasty stuff that goes on. You're thinking, I never would have thought that person was like that. And the way they're talking to these people, the way the comments they make, that the type of things they're expressing is more than I wanted to know about them, honestly, right?
Yeah, that's where
and
we
so
get the
it's
term
a
keyboard
we're
warrior.
getting both at the same time. We're getting the false front up here, the superficial thing, and at the same time, we're finding things out about people that we kind of wish we didn't know about them. My social media, I don't really care that much for it, but I engage in it. But honestly, other than LinkedIn and YouTube, my social media has been almost non-existent since early 2020. Not because of the pandemic, it was because it was an election year. And every 4 years during the election year, I would basically disengage with the Facebook and the Instagram and those kind of things because I didn't want to know what people were going to say to each other. I figured I don't care really what you think or who you like or those kind of things. I just don't want to know that you're a really mean, horrible person when you say things to people that you would never say to their face. And there's no call for it just because you don't like their political philosophy or the candidates that they support. And so I would just disengage with it because I figured I still want to be friends with people at the end of it, and I don't want to know who the knuckleheads are. And so I disengaged. Of course, then the pandemic came up, which meant that long after the election, a lot of that was still going on. It just wasn't political. It was now around the COVID thing, masking and not masking and vaxxing and not vaxxing and all that kind of stuff. And I just figured I didn't want to know that about people. So I never really went back and engaged. LinkedIn is a business-oriented thing, so I don't get a lot of that. So I do that, and the YouTube. And I find that, like I say, there was two sides of it. What they present is this person, but then their comments and the way they approach communication with each other is just, I thought a lot of times just flat out mean-spirited and quite intolerant. And I just didn't want to know that about people.
Yeah, Masterful Communicator, we have a little different approach where the apex of masterful communication is to unify.
Right.
So before that, you get to that point, there can be a tendency to say, see it my way or else. And someone who might be a step evolved beyond that would be like, okay, we're just not going to talk about religion or politics at the dinner table because I don't want to get into a fight, right? That is where a lot of people stop, and there's no stand to really connect and unify with people. And, if you look at an example like if I'm a Metallica fan, and if I meet someone who thinks Nirvana is the greatest band of all time, I would not get into a fight probably with that person. I'd be like, really, tell me why that is. Did you have an experience with Nirvana? Why is it that you feel that they're the best band of all time? And I can share with you mine. And same could be about crunchy versus creamy peanut butter. So we can really, we are capable inherently of honoring others' points of view and being curious and saying it isn't about my way or the highway. We can really honor one another. Why not bring that same thing to voting for Trump or Biden, or whether you got the vaccine or not, and to enhance that quality? So during 2020, I hosted a series called Understanding. And one of the events I hosted was called Understanding Trump Supporters, partly because growing up in San Diego, Democratic family, I went to USC Film School where basically you were a Democrat or a dork. So there was little choice in the matter. The entire industry obviously leans very
Hollywood
blue.
is about 99.9999% left, yes.
Yes, it is. So if you want to be one of the cool ones, that's where you lean. And of course, like rock music, very much in that same leaning. And it struck me that I was part of the problem, thinking, why would anyone vote for Trump? That was just my default because I've been conditioned that way. And I thought, well, the best way to find out would be to actually ask them point blank, not from a place of how could you, but truly, I'm curious, like what's going on? Because I see you as a human being above all else. And I was very proud of that particular event. We had 50 people on Zoom. And I brought on 6 different Trump supporters, different backgrounds, different cultures, and just sharing, like, here's why I'm voting for Trump. And people said to me afterwards that I went in hating Trump supporters, and I felt there was a real sense of peace and understanding. And I may not agree with them, but I can respect them. And that to me is having a stand for humanity that a lot of people don't have. I think that we can really stand for what would it be like? Who would I need to become so that I connect with people regardless of any ideology?
Right. So my dad passed away a few years ago, but in his library up at his house that's still there, you look on his bookshelf, and there is a book by almost every president and vice president that has served in the 20th century, whatever they wrote, either side. There are books by the candidates that were, John Kerry and people like that. But he's got books, Reagan and Clinton and Obama and Hillary Clinton and Truman and George W. Bush, and everybody's there. The whole gambit, it's all there because he read all of them. And he wanted to understand where they come from and what they thought, because he always wanted to learn. He had his very own strong personal political beliefs, but it never stopped him from wanting to learn what other people were thinking and why they thought this way, and what drew them to that.
That to me is a quality of greatness your father has. So I was raised Jewish. I consider myself Jewish. So in learning about the Holocaust, one of the things you do is vilify Adolf Hitler. You just do. And I remember being inherently curious, where was he coming from with what he did, murdering 6 million of us Jews? Now,
came from World War One. His experience of World War
exactly.
One, where that came from, and the Treaty of Versailles.
Yes. And him wanting to restore Germany to its glory and bringing them a sense of pride. Well, we can all relate to that. If you gotten your asses kicked that badly,
and humiliated. They were humiliated in surrender.
That's exactly right. So the way he went about it, of course, questionable, to put it mildly.
Wrong, yes.
Yet the impulse behind it, there seems to be a lack of curiosity, because I would start to have these conversations with folks about where he was coming from, and people would say, so you're a Nazi sympathizer.
They shut you down immediately, yeah. I've had that. So we're going to have to take a break. I want to pick this conversation up on the other side of the break. This is Building Solid Foundations. We're talking to John Block. He's a masterful communicator, and we are going to be right back after this break.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services, including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing, and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Real Men of Real Estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA.
Boats, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station, KCAA radio.com.
Solid Foundations Radio.
Hi, this is Jim McLaughlin with Effective Action Consulting, and I've been a member of Fire Up Connect for probably 3 years now. And what I really like about Fire Up Connect is the unique model that we go through, that we follow, the agenda, so to speak, in the meeting, that really has us get engaged and involved with each other in the meetings. It's not that we're individuals, it's that we're all really working together to better ourselves, our businesses, and the community through the projects that we work on. So I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to network with people in this environment, and it's really impacted my business in a big way. So take a look.
Welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. This is your host, Steve Matley. We're talking with John Block. He is a communication expert and a mindset expert as well. We were leaving off the break, and we were talking about this idea of communication breakdown, where we just don't want to listen to what someone has to say if we don't agree with them, or we think they're stepping on a topic that we think is a taboo topic, and anybody that talks about that must have a problem. He was referencing specifically questioning what created the monster known as Adolf Hitler, coming from a Jewish background, and the fact is, monsters are created usually, and it's a good question to ask. How did people get this way? And obviously, I would say that in history, he was a very effective communicator. Although what the message he was communicating was definitely not a good message.
Yeah, and we could apply a similar line of inquiry to the mass shooters of today, where, again, being Jewish, we had an incident here at Chabad Poway, and I went to the vigil there, and on one hand, it was a beautiful act of solidarity where they had religious leaders from, Muslim faith and so on, right? There's about 15 of them, each representative of their different faiths. And on one hand, I was touched by the act of solidarity and support. And there's a part of me that was wondering, the shooter, his parents, where are they? What if we invited them and share their point of view? Because their son had been killed in this process. And to understand more where he was coming from, what insight can we learn from this so that we don't repeat this? If we're really committed to ending mass shootings, let's start with understanding the mass shooter. And instead to really do the lazy thing, which is to vilify them and then...
Or vilify the weapon they used. It must be the tool.
Yeah,
and
right?
I can build with a hammer or screwdriver, or I can kill someone with a hammer or screwdriver.
Yeah, so there is mental health issues. A lot of it has to do with, I think, the internet and men feeling so alienated. So that's why men's groups are really important. There's more of them where men can just sit in a circle and just talk about their feelings. I think no man should ever be shamed for saying, I'm going through depression right now, regardless of what he's got going on in his life, money, no money, girlfriend, no girlfriend, whatever, to be able to have a safe space where he can say, this is what I'm feeling right now. That will reduce the amount of suppression that goes on and hence the way people explode and act out.
I agree. And I think what happens is when you essentially those are kind of marks of civilization, I suppose, where you talk through things before you act. And when you take that component away, then you're naturally going to revert more to the primal instinct, which is the fight or flight. And so fight or flight manifests itself as acts of violence against other people, or flight is complete withdrawal, or potentially suicide is a form of flight.
Every person has a need and a right to be heard. I firmly believe that. So when a mass shooter takes action, that's their way of being heard.
It's a cry for attention.
Exactly. That's their way of being heard. So then the question becomes, in what way did we collectively, as humanity, we all can take responsibility in some way, I believe. It's a more empowered place to stand from. How do we fail this person? And then being heard.
And it's that line you walk, which can we understand this person and figure out how to prevent it, at the same time not make excuses for them because they made a conscious decision to do something that was unspeakably evil and hurt other people.
Yeah.
So they're not excused for that.
Definitely not.
Because there's other ways they could have dealt with it. So we all have personal responsibility, but at the same time, it's important to figure what leads somebody to that point where that's the decision they want to make.
Yeah. Appreciate you rounding that out, because there is definitely that responsibility, that person to be held accountable for what they did. Certainly. And the part that I tend to get curious about is how we naturally separate ourselves from them and label them a monster or these other things and say, well, that's not me. That's got nothing to do with me. And I want to press down on that a little bit and say, well, how could we have shown up differently to reduce the likelihood of it, as opposed to just separating ourselves and saying, well, it's got nothing to do with me. I got my life and they got theirs.
And humans, humans default to lazy when we can, right? Okay, that's what habits and routines and those kind of things are about. And we default to intellectually lazy too. Intellectually lazy is pigeonholing everybody.
Yes.
So this is a good person and this is a bad person. As you mentioned, you voted for Trump, you're evil. You must be, because that's nobody could possibly think that way unless they think like I do, right? And therefore, if you don't think that way, you're evil. So it's a lazy way of doing it. I don't have to think about it, process it, or engage in uncomfortable thought process. I can just label that person as bad, and then I don't have to deal with it. I can do the same thing with religions. I can do the same thing with people that do certain occupations, whatever it is, right? We like to label people, categorize them, put the sign on them, and we see that in the politics. It's a politics of identity politics and labeling. I see that even in news, the words they choose to use to describe people, associations and organizations, the way they describe them, they're labeling things so that they're telling the viewer, you don't need to process this or do your own research. We've already done it for you, and this is the label we've decided. And I think as far as communications, that's where a lot of this breakdown comes from.
Yeah, and one approach that I take, and this may or may not work for everyone, is that there are certain ways of communicating that I'm not okay with. So one of those, this is pretty universally agreed upon, is someone saying the N-word, for instance. If someone says that in front of me,
it's one of those labels.
Yeah, I'm not okay if someone says that around me, and it has happened, and I don't step over it. I would make it very clear, I'm not okay with you saying that word. I go one step further, and if somebody calls someone a jerk, I'm not okay with them doing that either. Now, you can say that they had a moment in which that was jerky behavior. That would be accurate.
And behavior and people are different things.
Exactly.
And everybody's capable of horrendous behavior, and everybody's capable of admirable behavior. But that's the problem with that pigeonholing thing. Because we always label people a certain way. We remember them by the one act. So if I say Richard Nixon, everybody thinks of one thing. There was a break-in and a cover-up and a lie to Congress, and then he got disgraced and impeached, right? They don't think of, well, actually, he started the EPA. He desegregated the schools. Johnson signed the legislation but didn't do anything about it. Nixon desegregated the schools, right? So you look at all this stuff that he did. He restored more Indian land to the Native Americans than any president in history, and nobody talks about it. Why? Because we've already labeled and decided this is what he is and what he's known for, and therefore that's the label we're going to put on him.
Yeah, no person is any one thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and people are capable of a lot of it. Now, some people spend their lives dedicated to a particular thing, whether it's an Adolf Hitler who dedicated his life to complete evil, destruction, and elimination of people he didn't like, or if it's a Mother Teresa who dedicated her entire life to helping people she did not know in a country she did not come from, in order just to help people who could not help themselves. And so that she's known for that, and that's correct. She probably wasn't perfect, I'm sure of it. But she dedicated so much of her life to it, we don't even see the other part of it.
Yeah, so if Mother Teresa had a moment where she was curt with someone and people would be horrified, I thought she was such a sweet lady. It's like she's a human being.
She's probably tired that day or sick or something. Yeah, exactly.
Have some grace, y'all.
Exactly. Yeah, so there are people that do that, but most of us are not either of those extremes. Most of us just go about our lives, and we make decisions and have behaviors that we ourselves would not accept or appreciate in other people. And then we also have those moments where we do things where we would be impressed if other people did it, and we're surprised that we were capable of that. Yeah. And I think most of us as humans go through life doing that. We do those every single day.
There has to be a fundamental respect that people are complicated. Just get that as a baseline. No person is any one thing. So one reason I appreciate romantic partnership is that you really get to see all sides of your partner. And sometimes people are shocked, like in that Mother Teresa example. I thought you loved me. How could you say this? How could you take that tone with me? Well, this is just evidence of how complicated people are, isn't it? And in that moment, there's a choice to be shocked, offended, and some of it's primal. You feel unsafe, and circumstances vary, of course. I'm not condoning any kind of snappy, especially abusive behavior at all. Yet, what I have found is that anytime we can come from curiosity and say, okay, well, what's behind that? I sense that there's some judgment behind that tone. I don't believe in correcting someone's tone because that is their natural way of expressing. However, if there is a tone issue, there is probably some judgment that they're carrying, and then we get to get curious. Well, what's behind that? Do I remind you of someone? Or is there something going on in your world, like you're on a certain schedule and I don't align with that? And then we can talk about it and come to a richer, deeper understanding. Every disagreement is an opportunity for deeper connection.
Yeah. And I think also there's truth to the fact that there are certain personality types that we just don't mesh with. And that's okay. You're not going to be friends with everybody in the world. And so sometimes we can respect that person, treat them courteously like we should professionally. It doesn't mean that we're ever going to connect on a level where we become friends, because for whatever reason that just connection isn't there. And there's a room for personalities to either connect or not connect. No reason to be nasty to each other about it.
Yeah, I think we put too much stock on whether we like or dislike someone. You can have preferences, absolutely. I mentioned preferring Metallica concert over any other type of concert. And to have that context of love and respect always for one another. That's what tends to be missing with people.
Yeah. You approach it. So I teach a leadership class at the school. And one thing I always, I try to address what I consider to be bumper sticker philosophy that may or may not be all that accurate. So one of those is the old respect has to be earned. And I always bring that up. And I say, is that true? So when you walked into this classroom, you immediately disrespected me and I immediately disrespected you because we didn't know each other, right? No, we didn't. We defaulted to respecting each other. We didn't have to earn it.
Yeah.
We defaulted. What can be earned is your disrespect if you do something to earn that. People earn disrespect by, doing lying, cheating, stealing, whatever they did, right? And then it's hard to earn their respect back. But I even tell them, okay, so I know that a lot of that comes from the military. So you step off the bus at the military recruiting depot and you line up as a grunt.
Yeah.
Did you immediately disrespect that drill sergeant? He hadn't done anything to earn your respect yet. He's just some guy you just met, and he's probably yelling at you. No.
But the chain of command requires you respect him, but not the other way around.
Yeah, but you probably would have defaulted, even as a human, to respect him initially, right? Now, over time, as you get to know people, you can earn a greater level of respect and admiration from them. But I find that that's not true. As human beings, the default is respect each other until given a reason not to.
When you're living authentically from your spirit, yes, I could not agree more with you, Steve. That is the default. When you have this manufactured structure of a chain of command, then a phrase like that would apply. And that's one reason, like you, I'm not a fan of this bumper sticker wisdom, which is not actual wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation. We're going to get into the whole mindset thing with John Block. This is Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley. We'll be right back on KCAA.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Real Men of Real Estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA.
Boats, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station KCAA radio.com.
Solid Foundations Radio.
Hi, this is Jim McLaughlin with Effective Action Consulting, and I've been a member of Fire Up Connect for, probably 3 years now. And what I really like about Fire Up Connect is the unique model that we go through, that we follow, the agenda, so to speak, in the meeting that really has us get engaged and involved with each other in the meetings. It's not that we're individuals, it's that we're all really working together to better ourselves, our businesses, and the community through the projects that we work on. So I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to network with people in this environment, and it's really impacted my business in a big way. So take a look.
Welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. This is Steve Matley. We are talking today with John Block. He is a communications and mindset expert. If you're interested in what you hear today and you want to learn more about John or get in contact with him, you can go to masterfulcommunicator.com, masterfulcommunicator.com. You can find him on LinkedIn as well. Look for John Block, JONBLOCK, on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and he's on Instagram as well. Or if you want to direct connect with him, you can go to his email. That is John Block, JONBLOCK, johnblockcreations@gmail.com, johnblockcreations@gmail.com. So, John, we've been talking about communications, and part of what we talk about in communications has to do with mindset. It's in order to effectively communicate, what is our mindset about the world and the people we're dealing with? Are we just categorizing and pigeonholing them? Or are we labeling them? Are we reacting based on our own feelings and prejudices towards what they say and assuming what they mean? So let's get into the whole mindset as it relates to this. Being a mindset expert, first of all, let's define what mindset is, what it means, and then is it possible for people to change their mindset?
Oh, 1,000%. I'm living evidence of how we can change our mindset. So fundamentally, mindset is how you think and how you relate to yourself in the world. So it is very much malleable. It's something that you would exercise just as you would your biceps. You could have really weak, flimsy biceps and go to have like these great guns that you're proud to show off if you do the work. One great example, this is related to bodybuilding, is Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he speaks about mindset quite a lot and saying that the most important thing is to have a vision or a goal for where you want to go. So he was in this poor family from Austria where everyone becomes a part of the military in a small town, small life. And he said, I'm going to become Mr. Universe and become the highest paid movie star in the world. So then all the actions he took aligned with that. And he created that for himself. One thing that most people seem to lack is a personal development goal. Who am I going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years as a leader, as someone who is as a friend, different roles that you have? How am I going to be relating to others? Is it going to be a place of compassion or judgment? And then you start catching yourself. So personal example would be that I have a commitment to be kind to others. I notice when I'm not being kind a lot more because I have a commitment to be kind. If I was in absence of that commitment, like I just didn't have a commitment at all in that area, I would be just at the whim of how I felt in the moment.
Is the idea of if you're aware of if you think about something, you're aware of it everywhere. So if I decided I want to buy a BMW and I start looking at some online, all of a sudden everywhere I look, there's a BMW. Every parking lot, every driveway, because that's where my mind is. I'm noticing that. So if I'm saying I want to be kind, I'm noticing people, how kind they are and how kind I am to other people. I'm starting because it's top of mind now.
Yes, and to use the Arnold Schwarzenegger example, if he has a clear commitment to be the top movie star in the world, to be the bodybuilder, he's probably not going to be out drinking the night before an audition.
Right.
He's not going to be eating unhealthy ways like, fried chicken, right? He's just not going to be doing those things because of that commitment. It makes it so glaringly clear when something is misaligned
so
with that
every
commitment.
Little decision is a step toward or a step away from that ultimate goal.
So if I'm here to be the kindest person I can be, just as a declaration, I decide that matters. This world needs more kindness. I enjoy my life more when I'm kind. I like having lots of friends. I believe it's good for business. I'm going to decide to be kind. Then it becomes glaringly apparent to me when it's misaligned, when I'm snappy with someone, when I'm reactive. It doesn't feel good in my system, and I can apologize for it afterwards, whatever gesture of kindness that would get me back in alignment.
Okay. So speaking of Schwarzenegger, I understood somebody asked him if he could be any of the great composers in the world, who would he be? And he said, I'll be Bach. Yes,
I like that one.
Dad joke of the day. So I think it's interesting when you talk about having that as the goal, because the truth is especially if we write down, we speak, we think on a particular objective or goal, we tend to make them little micro decisions that get us closer to it as opposed to get us further away from it, even if we're not consciously thinking about everything we do.
Yeah.
And that's the point of really committing to something and thinking through where do I want to go and what does it take to get there. I'm a big believer in goals, but I also believe that goals to some degree are with an open hand because life will throw things at you while you're working towards a goal. Opportunities come. So if your goal is to do a certain thing and you're working that direction, sometimes that opens up other opportunities because it attracts things to you, and then you can actually choose things you never thought about that may even be better than what you thought.
Which is all the more reason to not attach too much to your material goals.
Yes.
Right? That's the tendency. I want to have $1 million in the bank. And you're right. You could miss out on a lot of joy and satisfaction and experiences in the pursuit of that goal. And maybe that is the right goal for you to commit to and align yourself with that. This is all the more reason to have personal development goals. I want to have peace in my life. I want to be patient with others, with myself and others. Self-love, as cheesy as that might sound to some people, that could be a goal to have. So anytime you are not in that vibration, you get to catch yourself and then get back in, perform an act that would clearly indicate that you love yourself.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what mindset is. And then we make goals to kind of try to move that. Let me ask you a question. Mindset versus, say, worldview. Are they the same or are they different?
Worldview would be context for your mindset. So to me, mindset it is the work that you do to cultivate mindset. So it'd be like saying your physical body, right? Your mindset. So that's the sum of like the work that you do to create the physical body you want. And then worldview is the lens through which you see things. Having a optimistic worldview. I forget who is this quote's attributed to. I think it's Einstein. Maybe you know better. You're so well read. The most important decision a person can make is whether we live in a friendly universe.
Okay. And
that would inform the quality of our life. Do we live in a friendly universe? So you mentioned respect. Starting out 100%. I heard McConaughey when he was promoting Greenlight's memoir, how he said that when he meets someone, this is about trust. When he meets someone newly, that person has 100% of his trust. And if he suspects that person is doing something that may not be in his best interest, that percentage will drop. Everyone fundamentally starts out with 100% trust. And as I was listening to that, I was thinking, well, that makes sense why he's had the success he's had.
Right.
Because of the trust, that openness that he has to new circumstances and people coming into his life. And he's in a position where you might say he has to have a high level of distrust, all the takers and so forth around him, yet he operates from this place, choosing that we live in a friendly universe. To have 100% trust with people has no doubt created more success for him.
Right. And then again, they can, by their actions and their words, they can choose to earn his distrust.
Yeah, and this is where honing discernment, because I have a lot of clients who are women, so they might hear a statement like this and have a different context. They might say, well, it's easy for McConaughey. He's a big, strapping man who can hold himself against anyone. Easier for him to say, to trust. And there is something unfortunate that happens with a lot of people as they get older, and just having been doing this since 2011 and had hundreds of people through my seminars and coached a lot of them individually, there is something I've noticed with women, let's say, as they get older, the more heartbreak and experiences they've had, and the sense of like, oh, my husband took all my money and like so forth, left me for someone else. There can be a challenge with trusting. It's not just women, obviously. But
I think as people go through life, if they've been worked over a few times,
yeah,
they each step, a piece of that trust in fellow humans dies, and they become more cynical, more guarded.
Exactly. It's a universal quality. And what is happening is throwing baby out with the bathwater a bit. That this is a beautiful quality, just like smiling and feeling joy when you're a kid. That's a beautiful quality. Let's protect that and grow that over time. Let's not lose that ever. So too with trust. We just want to add to it, add to this discernment. Like, what does it look like when someone cannot be trusted with your social security number or your home address? So to have a sense of what that looks like, and it's not even judgment. That's a big thing too, discernment versus judgment. Judgment is more, that's just a bad person, I don't like them, and then you kind of, withdraw a bit from them. Discernment is more, okay, I choose who to let into my life, just like how I don't need to judge pizza per se, as an example. No offense to pizza lovers. I just choose not to have it in my life. I choose to have a salad instead. So that's discernment versus judgment.
Okay, but there's a point for in discernment to weigh what people say and what they do to kind of determine what level of trust we want to give them. So I would say,
absolutely,
not necessarily called to judge, but maybe to be fruit inspectors. Look at the fruit that's coming off of that and decide, is this good fruit or bad fruit that they're producing, right?
One way I apply discernment is to look for alignment. Yeah. So does what they say and what they do match?
Right.
So someone says, I'm going to email you that tomorrow. I'll send over that link. Do they send over the link tomorrow or not?
And that is the definition of the word integrity. Integrity means the same all the way through, right? You slice it, and it's all inside, outside, and every part of it has that characteristic. It's integral. Integral into it. Yeah. Integrity comes from integrated. And I think that's very few people probably are that completely, but all of us should be striving towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back to commitment, if someone says, I'm committed to losing 50 pounds, and then you see them eating a donut, I would apply some discernment and say, I probably could not trust that person to do business with them.
And see, that's why I went to a casino when I was in London and took some cash out and immediately lost it. I lost 50 pounds right away. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back on Building Solid Foundations after this short break.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections. Hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Real men of real estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA.
Boats, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station, KCAA radio.com.
Solid Foundations Radio.
Hi, this is Jim McLaughlin with Effective Action Consulting, and I've been a member of Fire Up Connect for, probably 3 years now. And what I really like about Fire Up Connect is the unique model that we go through, that we follow, the agenda, so to speak, in the meeting that really has us get engaged and involved with each other in the meetings. It's not that we're individuals, it's that we're all really working together to better ourselves, our businesses, and the community through the projects that we work on. So I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to network with people in this environment, and it's really impacted my business in a big way. So take a look.
Welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. This is Steve Matley. We are talking to John Block today. John Block is a communications and mindset expert. We've covered a lot of ground, talked about communication, talked about way we think and approach people. So the next question is, so what? How do we apply this? And for the people out there in the world that I know a lot of people are doing entrepreneurial businesses, they're working, maybe they want to get better at communicating and those things. Let's talk about those people, John. Now, you've done a lot of public speaking, as have I, but you've probably done more than I have. And you help people with that, but not just to stand up and talk for the sake of talking. There's a point behind it. There's a reason, right? You have to have a message to deliver before you want to get up and deliver a message, right? And you work with people that are trying to build businesses off of that. So let's talk a little bit about that. The kind of people you work with and the people you help and why.
Well, the core client base for me is mission-driven entrepreneurs. Okay. So as I say that, you could look at an example like Steve Jobs, where he had a mission to put a personal computer, and I guess he wasn't the first one with this, but that was a very clear mission he had, and to create Apple products. And if you imagine Apple without Steve Jobs, it's pretty hard to do.
Well, there was a period of time when there was Apple without Steve Jobs, and it did not do very well. And in fact, Bill Gates had to come in and bail him out at that point. Yes.
Yeah, and they brought him back. And then the legendary Steve Jobs presentations that we know is a big reason why Apple has the reputation and success that it does. So his ability to explain what it is, infuse the humanity and the storytelling behind it. Martin Luther King is another example where there were others who were talking about how black people were not treated properly in the South, to put it mildly, yet his I Have a Dream and the way he enrolled people into that's what changed history forever. We each have an equivalent to that as entrepreneurs. We're inherently leaders. We're disruptors of how things have been and then go in this new direction. If you look at the biggest movement makers of all time, they've all used public speaking to make their difference in the world, from Nelson Mandela, Oprah Winfrey, Abraham Lincoln. And as entrepreneurs, we are leaders. So what would it take to awaken the possibility in the people you're speaking to? What are they dealing with that they are at right now that is not okay? They've been dealing with it so far, yet there is a whole new possibility for them. Just like Dr. King said, I have a dream for what's possible. Steve Jobs said, this is what's possible instead. And when you do that from the stage, what's cool is that you don't have to have all the answers. I know I mentioned some of these names and people might think, oh, well, I'm just not at that level. You don't have to be. If you are really standing for something and you really want to bring this new context for people in life, then you'll figure it out as you go along. When people see someone on stage, there is something called the stage effect, which is that if you have a microphone in front of your face, people will assume you know what you're talking about. Right. And a problem correctly identified is a problem at least half solved, right? So you get to have the people along for the ride as long as you have that empathy and stand for them, and then you'll color it in as you go. I just don't want people to be intimidated thinking, I'm not ready. You're ready. If you care about people, if you want to have a successful business, you're ready.
And in one sense, even the experts in doing it forever aren't ever completely ready. They probably still have some jitters. There's probably still more they can do to improve.
Oh, gosh, yes. It never goes
away.
So
if you don't get started, you'll never be ready. And then that comes with time. You'll get more comfortable with it. You'll get better at it. You hone your skill. Like anything else, the more you do it, the better you're going to get.
I love working with public speaking because it is the eye of the needle to go through for a lot of people, in that who you become on the other side is so clear on why you're on this earth. You know how to communicate so that it lands every single time. We cannot, I think, underestimate the need to be heard. We talked about this earlier. So imagine how fulfilling it is to be heard and seen and validated by audiences over and over and over again. Should we need that in a perfect world? No, but we're human. So you get to have this deepest fulfillment a person can have over and over again, and inspire them, have a ripple effect out in the world, make lots of money. That's what happens when you get your public speaking down.
Okay. So how do you help people do that?
We have an event called Next Level Speaker. So we host these regularly. So you can go to masterfulcommunicator.com and see when the next event is coming up. These are hosted primarily in person. I believe that there's no greater transformation than an in-person multi-day event. My life's been transformed over and over again. So if you've not yet been to a multi-day in-person event, please do come to one, whether it's mine or someone else's. The community that gets created from that, and then who you get to become on the other side of it. There's no comparison for that. And across this time, we create the presentation with you. You master storytelling. You master how to make a sacred offer from stage, because there has to be some call to action at the end. You do it in a way that's exactly. So it's not done in a way that's,
you don't want to waste people's time.
Yeah, and to do it in a way that's really congruent with your authentic expression.
Okay, and I think that's a great approach to that. I would say that the public speaking, and I tell my students this all the time, I can teach them all the technical skills they need to get into the industry and get hired. But essentially, everybody that they're up against to get hired has that same basic skill set, or they wouldn't be there. They had to check all the boxes to get through the HR qualifications before they got an interview, right? What separates people, and once you get in, what makes you better is public communications, written communications, and interpersonal communications. Yeah. If you can do those three things well, that is the difference maker, because the written communication means you can communicate on paper, emails, that kind of stuff without embarrassing the company. And clearly making a case in writing. If you can, interpersonal meetings, one-to-ones, those type of things, it's effective. And then, of course, the public communication, that's honestly where a lot of the jobs come from. You go out there and you got to do presentations, proposal presentations, and it may not be a 500-person auditorium. It may be a 10-person audience of decision makers, maybe 5 people on a panel, but you've got to sell that to them. And that is some of the most nervous speaking you'll ever do. I always thought it was easier to talk to a large group than a small group. A large group is an audience, which is an inanimate object. A small group are human beings staring at you that you can see looking right back at you. Mm-hmm. That can be nerve-wracking.
Oh, it certainly can. It's a primal fear, and like we mentioned earlier, it doesn't go away. Al Pacino, Mick Jagger, they're so nervous when they get in front of people. You do develop tools, though, for how to manage that fear. And just getting that, all right, people want you to be good. Just like if you go to a movie, you want it to be good. The audience is pulling for you.
Because they don't want to sit there bored. Who wants to sit through a bad speaker?
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're going to have to wrap it up, John. I want to make sure people can get hold of you. So you want to go to masterfulcommunicator.com, masterfulcommunicator.com. Find out when the next level speaking event is coming up. You can also connect with John directly at johnblockcreations@gmail.com. John, Jon, johnblockcreations.com at gmail.com. This is Steve Matley on Building Solid Foundations. I want to thank John Block for being with us today and sharing what I thought was a fascinating conversation. And we'll be back next week and every week right here in Building Solid Foundations. And until next week, go do something different.
This is KCAA.